My parents kicked me out at 14 for bad grades. I went from homeless to building a six-figure business, but they tried to take credit in front of everyone, so I exposed. All their ABS say I am 27 My parents kicked me out of the house because I got bad grades. Yeah, that's right. Though we have been living in the US for 2 generations, my parents have not learned anything from American parents about how to raise a child. My parents have literally screwed my entire childhood obsessing over my school grades. They think good grades are the only way to make a successful life. To make it worse, my sister, who is a year older to me, is a class topper, so I was constantly subjected to a comparison in school, as well as at home. Situation was better until elementary school. I used to get A's in most of the subjects. My sister graduated elementary school with an A+ and topped the class, while I got an A and was nowhere in the list of top 10. That was the beginning of my parents' disappointment. In middle school, after every exam result, my parents would sit with my sister's last year's grade card and would compare it with mine. As this game of comparison started, my grades started dwindling further with every dip in my scores. My parents' rage soared high from as in elementary school, my grades went south to BS and CS. My parents lost their minds with my every dipping grades except for hitting me. They did all sorts of things to punish me. They made me kneel down for several hours without food and water. They would starve me on the evening before the exam so that I could focus on my studies. A month before the exams, they would rip me off my video games, cage me at home, not allow me to go out to play, and not give me ice creams, chocolates, or any of my favorite foods. Whenever I asked them for anything, their response would be, "Get good grades, then you'll get this." Eventually, I stopped asking them for anything, knowing I wouldn't get it. My parents run a grocery store in the back street. My grandparents were immigrants in this country. Grandfather worked as a daily wage laborer and grandmother as a janitor. They worked 2 jobs each to raise my father and my other 2 uncles. My father had to quit his studies early on to support his family. He has been working since he was 11. A similar story runs in my mother's family, too. Mom and Dad worked very hard in their teenage years and 20s to save money and start this small grocery store on the corner of the street. They think that getting good grades can only bring them out of poverty. We are not as poor as they portray. Typical Asian thing of saving for a rainy day and starving on the current day. While I appreciate all their hard work and their faith in the education system, they overdid it. School grades barely matter until you don't have to repeat a year. And repeating a year is also not that bad. It just pulls you behind your peers by a year, but that's okay. By torturing a kid at such a tender age, they were setting up for an imminent failure. As a kid, I genuinely used to work hard to match up to my sister's grade, but somehow I couldn't. I struggled with memorizing stuff efficiently like my sister. However, I was good in calculations, which didn't require mugging up. But as my parents' punishment got severe, I turned rebellious. I deliberately skipped my classes and loitered in the playground. I would fill my exam papers with stupid jokes and song lyrics. To annoy them even more, they grounded me by locking me up in a basement with my books. And my parents strictly controlled my time, only releasing me when I completed my lessons. On weekends and vacations, I was confined indoors. All my video games and comics were confiscated, and new ones were never purchased. But I was a clever kid. Whatever they did, I found a way to sneak out. My parents went to the grocery store in the morning and only returned at night, so I used to spend the whole day playing outside. When my parents discovered I was sneaking out, they started taking me with them to the store on weekends and during summer vacations. It was meant to be a punishment, but I found myself enjoying it. I loved interacting with people, helping them decide which products to buy and managing the billing counter. This didn't sit well with my parents. They didn't want me to run their grocery store. They wanted me to become a doctor or engineer. Anything less would bring disgrace to our Asian family. When I casually mentioned wanting to be a salesman because I was good at closing sales, my parents were horrified. According to them, only uneducated people did sales jobs. Since they were spending so much on my education, I should pursue a respectable profession. Things reached a breaking point when I scored an F grade in my freshman year of high school. My parents were beside themselves that I'd have to repeat a year. They berated me as if I'd committed a heinous crime. The verbal abuse and mental trauma reached its peak. They said I'd brought shame to the house and couldn't bear the embarrassment I'd inflicted upon the family. They threw me out, saying I was on my own and should never return, even if I died of hunger and cold. I was devastated. Though I was mischievous, I'd never thought of running away. I wasn't prepared for this. My parents hadn't let me socialize much, so I had few friends to turn to for help. When the initial fear of living on the streets subsided, I felt a sense of freedom. The first night, I slept on a bench in an open park. The next day, I went downtown searching for a sales job. After trying my luck at nearly a dozen stores, I landed a position at a beauty store. The owner gave me a chance to prove myself by selling an expensive lipstick as an add-on to a customer who was there just for night cream. Somehow, I succeeded. The owner thought I was passionate and charming enough to sell makeup to young women, so he hired me. The pay was low, but he provided a place to sleep. As sales increased, I negotiated for commissions on each sale I made. This became the beginning of my journey to become a successful businessman, defying my parents' expectations and carving my own path in life.